in this case, we have no newly discovered facts with respect to the motion for reconsideration of Laura McKinney.
But doesn't the case law dealing with that particular code section include criminal cases? If you shepherdize that, you come up with some criminal cases.
We did. I believe that none were found, Your Honor. We don't have any in our motion, which leads me to believe that no, there aren't any criminal cases under that section. And you asked me that question because you knew Ms. Lewis wrote the motion, huh?
No.
But no, as far as I know, there are no criminal law cases that involve that section because it's not recognized in criminal law. So, I mean, at least in theory, we didn't have to have all the argument. But
so if my Pepperdine law clerks found some.
Did they? Criminal cases? And what do they say?
Say it's applicable to criminal law cases.
Okay.
There's a rule in the civil procedure that an unfounded motion for reconsideration is the subject of sanctions. Just an aside.
Decades later, the O.J. Simpson murder trial remains one of the most controversial and widely discussed legal cases in American history. At the center of it were the brutal murders of Simpson's ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ronald Goldman, which took place on the night of the 12th of June, 1994. The timeline was tight. Between 10 and 11 p.m., Nicole and Ron were stabbed to death outside Nicole's home in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles. At around 11:15 p.m., a limo driver arrived to take Simpson to LAX for a late-night flight to Chicago. The driver later testified that Simpson didn't answer the intercom right away and finally emerged from the house just before 11:30, appearing flustered. At around 12:10 a.m., Nicole's dog was found wandering the streets, and soon after, neighbors discovered the bodies and called 911. Simpson returned to Los Angeles the next day and was met at the airport by police. They noted a deep cut on his finger and blood on his vehicle and driveway. Further investigation revealed blood inside his white Ford Bronco and on a glove found behind his guest house. Police matched it to another glove discovered at the murder scene. Despite the damning evidence, Simpson wasn't arrested immediately. Legal experts like UCLA law professor Peter Aranella argued that Simpson's fame gave him special treatment. In most murder cases, especially where evidence like blood and a matching glove are present, a suspect would be taken into custody immediately. Instead, Simpson remained free for several days. On the 17th of June, as police moved to arrest him, Simpson shocked the nation by fleeing in the now infamous white Bronco with friend Al Cowlings driving. The slow-speed chase was televised live and watched by 95 million people. Simpson had a gun pointed to his head and reportedly wrote a suicide note, but he eventually surrendered peacefully in his driveway that evening. The entire spectacle gave the impression that Simpson might be emotionally unstable or guilty. The case soon became a media circus. The trial was moved from the affluent, predominantly white suburb of Santa Monica to downtown Los Angeles. Prosecutors argued the move was routine for high-profile cases, but the new jury pool was more racially diverse, which many believed favored the defense. Simpson assembled a high-powered legal team dubbed the Dream Team, led by defense attorneys Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, F. Lee Bailey, Alan Dershowitz, and others. Meanwhile, the prosecution was led by Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden. From the start, prosecutors leaned heavily on Simpson's history of domestic abuse. Nicole had made multiple calls to police over the years, and Simpson had pleaded no contest to spousal abuse in 1989. Prosecutors believed this history established a motive, but instead of focusing tightly on forensic evidence, the prosecution presented a sprawling, often disorganized case that dragged on for months. One of the biggest missteps came when they called LAPD Detective Mark Foreman to the stand. Foreman had discovered the bloodied glove behind Simpson's guest house, the same type of glove found at the crime scene. But under cross-examination, Foreman repeatedly denied using racist language. The defense later produced audio recordings of Foreman making violent, racist statements, completely destroying his credibility. When recalled to the stand, Foreman pleaded the Fifth Amendment when asked if he had planted evidence. This moment allowed the defense to argue that the LAPD was not only incompetent, but possibly corrupt and racist. Johnny Cochran used this narrative masterfully. framing the case as a civil rights issue rather than just a criminal matter. Another critical turning point came when Darden, over Clark's objections, had Simpson try on the leather gloves found at the scene and on his property. The gloves appeared to be too small, and Simpson struggled to put them on in front of the jury. Cochran seized on the moment during closing arguments with the now famous line, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." The DNA evidence, which was compelling, ended up being overshadowed by the defense's effective counterarguments. Blood from Simpson, Nicole, and Goldman was found at the crime scene, in Simpson's Bronco, and in his home. In any other case, this may have been overwhelming, but the defense raised enough questions about contamination, mishandling of evidence, and potential framing to create reasonable doubt. The prosecution also failed to use key witnesses who could have strengthened their case. Jill Shively, for instance, had seen a man resembling Simpson speeding away from the crime scene in a white Bronco on the night of the murders. But when it was revealed she sold her story to a tabloid show for $5,000, Marcia Clark decided not to use her, fearing it would undermine credibility. Similarly, airport witness Skip Junis, who saw Simpson discard a bag, was never called. That bag was never recovered. It may have contained key evidence like the murder weapon or bloody clothes. Throughout the trial, the defense team stayed tightly focused. They questioned the integrity of the LAPD, highlighted the mishandling of evidence, and repeatedly reinforced the idea that Simpson was being framed because he was a successful black man. The jury, composed mostly of African Americans, deliberated for just 4 hours before delivering a not guilty verdict on the 3rd of October, 1995. Public reaction was deeply divided. Many in the black community saw the verdict as justice served, especially in light of past police abuses like the beating of Rodney King. Many white Americans were outraged, convinced that Simpson had gotten away with murder. After the trial, Simpson was found liable for the wrongful deaths in a 1,997 civil suit filed by the Goldman and Brown families. He was ordered to pay $33.5 million in damages, much of which has never been paid. Years later, Simpson stirred controversy again when he released a book titled "If I Did It: A Hypothetical Confession to the Murders." The book was later awarded to the Goldman family and retitled "If I Did It: Confessions of the Killer." The O.J. Simpson case highlighted many flaws in the justice system, from the influence of celebrity and race to media sensationalism and prosecutorial missteps. As Alan Dershowitz, one of Simpson's lawyers, later said, "The system worked. It worked for O.J. Simpson. That doesn't mean people have to like it." Simpson would later end up in prison in 2008, not for murder, but for armed robbery in Las Vegas, where he tried to reclaim what he said were his stolen sports memorabilia. He served 9 years and was released in 2017. Even today, the legacy of the trial of the century continues to spark debate about guilt, justice, and race in America.